And I got a question. I'm asking for a friend, and my friend wants to know if you can be a championship contender in a sporting league if you have lost the 3 home games with the biggest crowds of the season at your home ground. Is it possible to be a championship contender when you lose in front of your biggest home crowds in that season for 3 games? What do you reckon?
Is this from your friend Mr. A. Webster? I think I might have heard him ask this before. I still think you can be. I don't think that necessarily is a it's an unfortunate trend, but it's not necessarily a red flag, especially because I suspect obviously we're talking about the Warriors here, are likely, like, they're not going to finish first or second, and that likely means that if they're going to make a run and compete for a championship, I think a lot of that's not going to happen in front of home crowds. You might get a home game first up, or possibly even second up, depending on how the shovels go. But they'd be playing a semi-final in Australia, and if somehow they make it all the way to the grand final itself, that'll be in Australia. You know, it's not necessarily the home crowds that are going to determine that, but it's not the best trend day when you get the big the big celebratory occasions, your biggest crowds in there, and they've managed to lose in front of those 3 biggest crowds that they've had so far this season.
That, of course, is the Warriors, as you pointed to, at Mount Smart Stadium. So I've got to keep putting this out there, but the biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium this year are both Auckland FC, and they're notably bigger than Warriors crowds. So the semi-final, which
they lost,
that was a dark 48 hours for me as a soldier of Mount Smart Stadium, a worshipper at Mount Smart Stadium. That was 48 hours. The women's diabolical loss to the Titans, like, that was some of the craziest rugby league I've ever seen. I do love women's rugby league. I love women's sport in general, just specifically as a observer of rugby league. That was diabolical. Like, there were a couple times where there were 3 markers, players not listening to the referee. All sorts of crazy rugby league shit was going on in the women's loss to the Titans. And then the men sucked in their loss to the Titans. So the 48 hours at Mount Smart Stadium, I think that might have been... Who did the Warriors lose to? That might have been the Raiders.
The Raiders game. It was the Raiders game.
So we had Auckland FC, then we had the Raiders loss. That was dark. That was the dark arts of Mount Smart Stadium. As far as like a 5-hour window, 2 losses to the Titans, that was pretty dark as well. So we'll get into a bit of that. I don't want to dwell on it because it was terrible. But 29,148 people for the A-League semi-final. The Derby in Auckland, A-League Derby, 27,000. Then the Raiders lost, 26,500. Panthers lost 25,000. And the Titans crowd was 24,200, which was 100 people exactly more than the Tigers game. So they did win that Tigers game. And the Warriors are really awesome at Mount Smart Stadium if the crowd is between 20,000 and 24,115. Anything over 24,115 at Mount Smart Stadium, the Warriors suck. They got losses to the Raiders, Panthers, and now the Titans. As someone who is partial to Tanner Boyd, and we're holding on to that for now, as someone who is partial to Tanner Boyd, I'll add that I don't think Luke Metcalf... I think Luke Metcalf played against the Raiders and the Panthers, so he was also present in those home losses in front of big crowds. But yes, Three biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium this year. The Warriors have lost all three of those games. And you hear it a lot, especially from the Australian rugby league media. Warriors, if they can finish top four, get a home finals run, because if you're top four, I think you go two home finals games. That is meant to be a really, really good thing for the Warriors. There is no evidence to suggest that is a good thing right now. Because if you get over 25,000, the two games that has happened this season against good opposition, the Warriors have lost both of those games. And the Warriors, I think they were the home game for the trip to the greatest nation in the world, America. So that might skew their stats, but the Warriors have exactly the same record home and away, 6-3. So there's no evidence to suggest the Warriors are better at Mount Smart Stadium. So just keep that in mind as we're zoning in on the top four. Because it won't be better, but I think it is something the Warriors folks have to ponder, which means that I have been thinking about this over the last 48 hours. There is a chance that the Warriors do slip out of the top four. You got the Panthers coming in hot. I poked fun at them earlier in the season. They've been firing. We'll talk about some of their Kiwi NRL players in a jiffy. You've got who knows what the Broncos will do. The Sharks are on the hunt. The Dolphins are on the hunt, and the Warriors host the Dolphins this week. So we'll learn more about this over the weekend. But based on the fact that the Warriors aren't really that good at Mount Smart Stadium in front of big crowds, it's not the worst situation if they slip outside the top four. Either way, you're going to have to win some really tough games of rugby league. But the whole idea of finishing top four is you get that home advantage, and I do not believe there is a home advantage right now for the Warriors, which is crazy to say because there's so many great fans, all different shapes and sizes, cultural backgrounds. The fans are so invested in worshipping at the Temple of Mount Smart, as are Auckland FC's Blue Rider supporting nation. And the Warriors just stink it up at Mount Smart for those fans. It's a very strange predicament that the Warriors have found themselves in. And I mean, that loss to the Titans sucked. The women's loss to the Titans sucked. But shout out to Big Foz, Kieran Foran. He was immense. There was an NRL.com story about Kieran Foran, and that dude loves Aotearoa. So anyone who loves Aotearoa, I love you. Kieran Foran, I think we are pushing towards a fairy tale finish with the New Zealand Kiwis, so that would be awesome if it does happen. And also, similar mana, especially for the half Pākehā, half Palangi rugby league player variety, Georgia Hale leading the Titans women to a victory at her former home ground, Mount Smart Stadium as well. So lots to digest there. You got any quick thoughts about my rant to start us off?
Quick thoughts. I did check that. I think the Raiders were classed as the home team for the Vegas game because the Warriors have lost at home to Panthers, Raiders, and whoever it was in the weekend, Titans. So that's their three home losses. So the other Raiders one must have been an away one. The
Magic Round.
Magic Round.
I think they were the home game against the Dolphins at Magic Round,
which they won, didn't they?
Yes. So that's so we could say they're 5-3 at Mount Smart Stadium.
Yeah,
maybe not Mount Smart, maybe just Aotearoa because can't go back throughout the whole draw right now.
Yeah, I can't remember. They might have had whatever. And it's Dolphins this weekend, isn't it? And it is currently can probably even hear it on the microphone a little bit, but pouring with rain where I am, I'm assuming pouring with rain where you are, sounds like pouring with rain everywhere across the country on this Tuesday. And is that a Friday night game? Am I right there? Friday night at Go Media Stadium at 8 p.m. So that's only 3 days away, and it's pouring with rain right now. What I'm saying is, I don't think they'll get 26,000 people to Mount Smart if the weather's crap all week. That might be a good thing for the Warriors. Keep it below that little buffer so that they can win that game. But also, maybe the actual pertinent point of that is, I kind of like the idea of the Warriors playing finals games on the road a little bit more anyway. I think the style of how they play, where they're very good at like absorbing, pouncing in the last 15, 20 minutes, um, like capitalizing on mistakes from other teams, where on the weekend it was a weird one because they were the team that kept making mistakes. They were the team that kept giving away like six agains and little fumbles when they got over halfway and things like this. Whereas the Titans were just, especially second half, completion after completion after completion after completion. Like they kind of flipped the script on the Warriors there. But I think that style, it almost works better away when that other team has the pressure and the expectation of being the home side in a finals game like that. So it's too much of a stretch to call that an advantage, because you'd still rather be playing at home. You've got the whole week of preparation, which is just going to be um, much easier to do when you are in a home game and you got those familiar conditions. But I don't know that it's a disadvantage either. I don't know that that's something that necessarily has to it'll be presented that way, no doubt, especially if it's the Warriors slipping out of the top four, which like you pointed out there, could happen. Just don't know what happened to the Panthers, but they're on a roll right now. The Broncos, if they hadn't been turned over by the Eels, which they almost weren't, like there's some late drama in that one, they'd only have been 2 points behind the Warriors in that case. So they're certainly not safe where they are. They're going to have to consolidate that with a bunch of wins throughout the rest of the season. But I don't know if they find themselves playing away finals games. I don't know if that's it's like I don't know if that's a advantage, but I don't know if it's a disadvantage either for the type of team that they are and the style that they play.
Forecast is pretty good for later in the week. We just got this this whole weather bomb coming in. But as Isaiah Rashad said on I Shut You Down, Mama taught me better, can't count on neighbors, can't count on weather. So we'll have to wait and see for the weather, because those weather forecasts are always a bit iffy. Also, with what you're saying there about the Aussie finals, no disrespect to the worshippers at Mount Smart, I think the Aussie Warriors crowds are better. And I think you saw that for the Knights. Like, not only do the Warriors draw big crowds in Australia and boost the crowds for all the Aussie teams, but there's just a different vibe for the fans in Australia. Like, they actually they've got better chance. Like, it's just straight up that Knights game, there were drums going, like not the Polynesian drums that have become such a large part of Mount Smart Stadium, but like dudes are in the crowd with a drum. And they, like in Christchurch, you get the ooh, ah, up the wahs. Right? You're getting that in Australia as well. In Australia, you get the Warriors. Both of those chants I heard in the Knights game. So if you're wondering how the Warriors were able to rally to get that victory, a big Warriors crowd helps that. But also, they're just way more funky. Like again, no disrespect to the worshippers at Mount Smart, because I am one of them, but the Aussie Warriors fans have way better chants and musical activity. That needs to be said, because there's literally no chance at Mount Smart Stadium. Like there's not even I don't see the Spider-Men as much this season. The best you're going to get is Warriors, cha-cha-cha, Warriors, cha-cha-cha. and that doesn't really happen too often. But in Australia, you get either the goosebumpy Warriors, or you get the ooh ah up the wahs, which is just way more vibrant. So that's what I am. That's what I like about the Australian crowds for the Warriors, and don't get any of that at Mount Smart Stadium. So let's go Warriors. Couple losses outside the top four. Find the sweet spot for the crowds between 21,000 and 24,115. That's the sweet spot. Aussie games. That is the recipe for Warriors' success. But I don't want to see the Warriors lose, though. That's just weird. So, good stuff there.